Alright guys, welcome to Quarterfinals of KYSDC 2016. Congratulations to the team. On top man we have SDAR B, which is Taiping. Together with me are Patrick and Nigel. So without further ado, on the motion, this House believes that income tax level should be determined by the relative privilege of an individual upbringing. I invite Prime Minister. Okay, before that, few households you need to leave during the debate, leave in between speeches, leave your phone in silent mode or turn it off. Yeah, basically that's it.
We think we're in the current era where the rich are getting richer, where the poor are getting poorer, we think the rich need to step in. We think that the rich need to help these people in poverty. That's why we think that we need to increase tax for this type of individuals. But let's look at the case coming from government side. Alright, what we characterize this case? Basically, we're going to make individuals who were born rich, who grew up being rich, they're going to get a higher tax when they grow up. That's what we find in this motion. Alright, but what's happening in status quo right now? We tell you that in status quo right now, where there's a fixed tax. What do we mean by that? Even though if you're poor, even though if you're rich, you're going to be taxed the same amount. So that we think that there's something unfair, and we think that that's also a problem, because we think that the problem is equality. It doesn't always mean justice. So we can see where these rich people are too privileged. No, down. These rich people are too privileged. We think that's a problem. But secondly, we think that we should judge these individuals should be taxed on equitability. That's what we want to do. Alright. Now, what's the mechanism for today's debate? Basically, when you grow up being rich, in a rich family, that means when you grow up, you're going to get taxed a higher amount. That's basically our mechanism for today. And what's our burden to prove to you in today's debate? Our burden to prove to you in today's debate, basically, we're going to show to you why it's justified for us to do this. We're also going to show to you the benefits that are also under our side. Now, I have two arguments coming from me today. Alright, the first idea on a justification. We think that when individuals were born in birth lottery, where some people were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, we think that that's not fair. Why is that? We think that where these rich people are too privileged, where these rich people are unbelievably rich, we think that they need to actually help the poor. So when we actually tax them the higher amount, that tax is actually going to be able to help the poor. What do we mean by that? The money that is taxed, we're going to actually use this to help aid these poor people. That we're going to help basically help them. We're going to give them any aid possible we'll get from the tax. Why is that? Because where these individuals were born in birth lottery, when they were born in a very bad background, we think that they shouldn't be taxed because it's unfair to them. Because when they were born in a bad condition, where they couldn't even do things like get good education and get high-paying jobs, we think that makes it a problem for them to actually pay taxes. That's why we think it's so justified. But before I continue on my argument, any your eyes.
So, what is income tax? Income tax is not equal to fixed tax. Income tax is according to your income that you earn by month.
Here.
Okay, so we think that we think that it doesn't matter, but we think that we need rich people need to be taxed more because of them being too unbelievably rich and the poor being too unbelievably poor. And we think that these people need the help. But secondly, what's the second level of the argument? Let's look at the idea of awareness. What do we mean by that? We think that when these poor people are finally pushed in to actually help these individuals, we think that these poor people, these rich people, will finally have a self-realization that, oh, these poor people are so poor and they need our help. We think that shows to you where awareness is in, where all these people will finally want to help these individuals because they know how bad the condition that they're living in. We think that that's what we mean by us creating awareness. Now, let's go on the second argument for today, on us destroying the mindset of rich people towards the poor and poor people towards the rich. Alright, what do we mean by that? We think that when poor people who are never okay with the rich being by the rich being so rich because of them being born in a poor lottery, we think that causes them to actually discriminate them. We think that causes it causes poor people to think bad of these rich people because of them are being born with a silver spoon. Right. But why do we tell you that this can be stopped? Why do we tell you that we have the benefit as we share specific on the outside? Because we tell you when the poor actually get help from the rich, as I told you, this money is going to be used for aid. We tell you that then finally these individuals see that firstly that the wealth that these people have are finally being shared with them, but secondly they're going to actually appreciate the help they're going to get by them. Alright, that's how we tell you that that's going to lose the mindset towards them. But this also works upside down. This also works in vice versa. What do you mean by that? Because we also think in a specific school right now where there are a lot of people who discriminate or rich people who discriminate a lot of people for you just being rich. But if I were to pass by a slum, because if rich people was to pass by a slum, you probably discriminated and probably alienated by them. We think that because of you being taxed, it causes awareness and it causes them to see how poor and how bad that you need this help. It shows to you where this mindset of poor people and of rich people being different from poor people will finally be able to be lost. And we think that these individuals will finally be able to actually interact with one another. Alright, so now let's summarize my speech for today. I gave to you government's case for today, but I also gave you two arguments on the idea of how it's justified. I told you on why it's not fair for you to be born in a post lottery, and that's the reason why we think that rich people should be taxed. But I also told you on the mutually exclusive benefit on the outside, where finally the mindset between both parties will finally be lost. So if you want to go for a side that is able to actually help this individual, help poor people, and you want to go for a side that actually stops discrimination and helps individuals, you need to go for government side.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now I invite leader of opposition.
There are many issues coming from side government speech. Firstly, they confuse the meaning of tax with income tax. But we believe that tax in general is what you have to pay to the government. But what differentiates normal tax from income tax is that income tax is how much you earn, is how much you have to give back to the government. So income tax does not actually relate to tax as well. It is a form of tax, but it does not necessarily mean that it is a tax in the first place. It's just a specific area of tax where people have, the more you earn, then the more you have to give back to the government. It does not mean that it is a tax as a whole, meaning that that is the first flaw coming from side government, where they fail to realize the difference between tax and the specific area of tax, which is income tax. Now, secondly, they talked about how birth lottery affects people's life. I will move on to that later, but to touch a little bit, a few rebuttals regarding birth lottery is that it is good if you grow up rich and you stay rich. But what happens if you grow up rich and you end up to be poor? What happens when you grow up rich and then it turns out your company that you inherit from your parents turns out to get bankrupt? And what happens next? That is the harm that we are trying to curb by defending the status quo, which is that the status quo right now is that income tax is proportionate to what you currently earn, meaning that the higher your income is, the higher the income tax you have to pay. That is the form of what we're giving back to the government, and that is a form of how we create awareness to say to the poor that we are helping the rich. Now, all of the arguments that have dealt with inside government has been settled. Now, what is the thing into this debate? What is the main issue? The main issue is regarding how the state helps the poor and how we should value other people's income, or how we should value what source of their income in the first place. Now let's look at one by one. So let's start with the function of tax in the first place, ladies and gentlemen, or the function of tax and the function of income tax, to help clarify the model in the minds of side government. Right? So the function of tax is the distribution of wealth in the state, meaning that meaning that the people have to provide revenues for the government so that they're able to enact policies and to create recreational areas so that the people can benefit from the tax itself. This is how you give back to the people. So now, but the thing that they're proposing today, the motion itself, is an inefficient form of taxation, which I'll move on to that later. But now the difference between normal tax and income tax is that income tax is what you earn, is how much you have to give back. To make it simpler, is that the higher you earn, then the higher you have to give back to the government. That is different from normal tax. Now let's move on to how it is an inefficient form of taxation, and how it is unfair. And I'll give you basically 4 analogies of what will happen under taxation, which is the premise of our argument. So now let's move on to those who are rich and stay rich. Now this is the ideal and the utopian version of what side government wants. How they are able to give back to the people because they are born rich, therefore they have to pay a higher level of tax, which is not income tax, and then how they have to give back to the people. So we see that this is absolutely ideal in the way that how they are able to give back, because they are able to earn what they earn now. And because their family are rich, then therefore they have to give back to the rich. But now let's move on to the second issue on how if they were born rich, but now they are poor. Now this is the catastrophic situation that side opposition wants to cater to. Meaning that if you grow up rich, if you have the privilege to grow up in a wealthy family, and then suddenly your company went bankrupt, then what happens next? Because the motion says that your income tax should be relative to the privilege of your individuals of an individual upbringing. Meaning that just because I was born rich and now that I'm poor, that the state is not being merciful to me, and therefore because I was born rich, I have the privilege to have to eat on a silver platter, and everything and all the dishes from me are made from 4-star chefs. Now that I have to pay for it, because we think that it is not fair for the state to impose sort of a punishment for these people who are just because they are born rich, now they are poor. So what side government, the harm that side government impose is that they fail to realize the harm that it will inflict to this sort of people. Meaning that just because for us, we believe that it is sort of a punishment for you to be in a wealthy upbringing, but then you end up poor, because we think that these people are unable to pay the income tax that they are supposed to do, and they cannot give back to the community in a proportionate way. Now, what is the solution to this problem under our side? We believe that we should defend the status quo. Why? Because let's look at the situation where you are born rich and then you stay rich. So what happens next? By the due principle of income taxation, the more you earn, the more you have to give back to the community, right? So when you are born rich and you stay rich, then it's good. Because why? Because you are already rich now. You don't need to source back to what you are initially brought up in. Meaning that if you were in a wealthy company, that does not matter, because what matters is how you do well now. Because you are doing well now, therefore you have to give back to the community more. Because if you source your income tax of how much you have to give back to the government based on your upbringing, and this will be unfair to those who were born up in a rich state but now end up poor. So this is the ideal situation under status quo, where you are born rich and then you stay rich and then you can give back more to the community because your income tax is proportionate based on what you earn now. So what if you are born rich? But what if you are rich? What will happen if you are born rich and now you're poor? Then that is fine because the government caters to that problem under the status quo. How? Because when you are poor, your income tax will also be lower. Meaning you don't really lose much. You are able to keep most of what you earn. And then the government, and how the government helps caters to this problem is that the state will, the revenue that they gain from how much income tax that they are able to collect from the rich will be able to redistribute to help these poor in sort of programs, and how some sort of charity, how they cater to the problem of this matter. Meaning that under our side, we cater to the problem of those who are born rich and then stay rich, and how we are able to redistribute the wealth to those people who are born rich but now poor. And this also applies to people who are born poor but are now rich, and also who are born poor but now stay poor. Meaning that if you are born poor but now that you're rich, under our model, this will benefit more rather than their side. Because why? Because income taxation now values for how well you are doing now. Meaning under their side, because they are born poor, they do not, under their model, the amount of income tax that they have to pay is proportionate because of how they were doing back then. Meaning that because they are born poor, that the tax that they have to pay is lower. So, but under our side, because you are doing well now, you have to pay more and you have to give back to the society. That is how we cater best to the best interests of stakeholders. So I've told you how under our side it is better to keep the status quo, and how under their side, even they fail to differentiate the meaning of income tax with normal taxation. Ladies and gentlemen, opt for certain position.
Can I have that new Prime Minister again?
Before we move on any further, let me clarify what we are trying to do with this type of tax. Firstly, taxing system that already exists, which is the income tax. We believe that this type of tax is based on how much you gain, but the type of tax that we are trying to impose here is based on your financial background. So if you were born rich, then you are going to be taxed more. This is there is no problem with this tax, and we believe that it's proportionate to be imposed on the society, because it brings a lot of benefits to us, which I'm going to explain furthermore in my arguments. Now, going on to the issue that the harm that the opposition side has tried to claim on us, when they say that this tax is proportionate, because in a situation where the rich go bankrupt, where they don't have any money, this is going to mean these are going to let these people get harmed. They say that these rich people are going to get harmed, but we believe that this is not a problem. But because we believe that it's still justified. Firstly, this type of tax is better in general. So this is why we say our side is better, because when you know that you are going to get taxed based on how much you because you have a stable financial background, you are going to be deterred from slacking off. This means that these people who know that they are rich and have the possibility of getting poor or getting bankrupt, then it incentivizes them to never slack off. This means that they are going to be afraid from slacking off and losing their company or losing a lot of money. This is why we say that our side is better, because we provide a deterrent from these people from slacking off. Secondly, we believe that it incentivizes these people to achieve the optimum wealth. This means that when you know that you are going to get taxed more, then these people have to constantly work harder and harder in order to keep the status in that as in a rich status in order for them to survive in this world. So we believe that this further incentivizes these rich people in order to survive in society. So the harms that they have told us are false, and we believe that it actually benefits us even more.
On that point, sir.
Before moving on, yes.
So what happens? So when you are born poor and now you're rich, that means under your model you are able to give less to the societies. And how does that benefit the society even more?
You have to understand that tax is utilized by the government by contributing back to the poor. We have to understand that this tax is always utilized by giving welfare aid to these poor, for these poor citizens. When these poor citizens are underprivileged, when they can't further their education or can't even live in a under the law, this means that we have to help them. And the way that we have to help them is by giving them welfare aid to at least give a better future for these people. On our side, we contribute, we cater more to these poor people, and we also create a fair level of taxation to the rich people. Now, moving on towards my first argument, which is equality is not justice. Equality is when you give all of these people, when you tax everyone the same, even though that these people that are going to be taxed for 10% of their income. We believe that this is still unfair, because the status quo right now, I believe, is abusing the rich. The rich are abusing the system, and the poor are getting victimized by the system. So we believe that when the rich people can abuse it, even if they have a stable financial background, we believe that they are still going to get richer and richer. Because even, for example, if they gain 1 million ringgit in a month, they are going to get taxed by 10%, and the remaining money is still sufficient enough for them to live. So we believe that it's fair for us to take a larger portion of their income in order to contribute back to the whole society. Because we have to understand that this, no thank you, you have to understand that these rich people don't have the aren't motivated to give back to the poor. They don't want to donate back to the poor, and we believe that the only way for us to get the wealth from these rich people is by taxing them and paying to this and giving welfare aid to the poor people. So we believe that these rich people are living in a situation where they have excessive money. They have too much money that they leave their money to waste. They are not utilizing their money to the fullest. So I believe that this type, when these people have extra wealth, they are going to use this for unnecessary leisure. They can go on a private yacht from Malaysia to South Africa, while people are struggling to find a piece of bread around the street. So this is very problematic in the system, in the societal system right now, because these type of people are getting victimized, and I believe that the only way to curb this problem is by following us our case. Now, how it helps the poor? When we give welfare aid to the poor, then we provide a better future for these people. The welfare aid is going to increase because we are going to get more revenue from this tax that we gain from these rich people. The problem now is that in status quo right now, that we cannot legally get the wealth from these rich people because they are limited with the income tax. But when we remove this limit, we are going to get more revenue and increase the revenue to give more welfare aid to the poor. So this means that it's going to create a bigger revenue and better welfare aid in general, which provides a better life for these poor citizens. So, in conclusion, our side caters to all, the rich and the poor, and we believe that this is the most legal way and justified way in order to do so. On our side, we curb the problem of poverty, and we also curb the problem of disproportionate income from the rich people. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have the register population here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like for the hall to note on how the government is confusing among themselves on what income tax are. The first speaker stated that income tax are to be based on your own personal earnings, on your own personal incomes, whereas the second speaker come out and say that income tax is a flat straight tax, meaning, for example, the tax is set at 10%. So I believe there is a clear contradiction in their case, and I will explain to you why is this problematic. Firstly, the first speaker stated that there is a justification for us to tax people, to set the tax levels based on their family's financial standing or how privileged they were when they were brought up. They stated that babies who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth is not fair for society because they are unbelievably rich and therefore we should tax them more. So they believe, but they're basically saying that if you were born in a rich family, it doesn't matter whether in life you were successful or not, you be poor or you were rich. In the end of the day, you still, from the get-go, from the moment you exited your mom's womb, it is stated in the law that you will be taxed higher than other people just because your family is rich. Now, we believe this is problematic on two levels. Firstly, tax in principle should be based on how you earn, on how much you work and how much you earn annually or monthly. And secondly, we believe that there is no guarantee that the children or the offspring of rich people will continue to be rich in the future. And therefore, it will create a problem where when you become poor in the future, but your family history is rich, then you will be taxed higher. This proportionally higher than what you can afford. Secondly, they said that thing about destroying mindsets and so on. They said that there is animosity between the rich and the poor. We believe by going forward with this motion, it will not destroy the animosity between the rich and the poor, because right now, under their model, stated by my leader of opposition to be inefficient and ineffective, there will be more animosity because right now you are actually taking the money from the poor to the rich and vice versa. It will be an extremely perverse situation. And therefore, we believe their justification on how people who are born in a rich family is justified to be taxed higher is just false. And let's look at the argument given by my leader of opposition. He stated earlier that it is not justified for us to do so just because we are born in a rich family. That does not mean it's okay for the government to tax us higher. If I were born in a rich family, it's not okay for the government to tax me higher because there are two conditions. It's either I grow up to be a rich person, and secondly, it is either I grow up to be a poor person. When I grow up to be a rich person, if I were taxed according to my family's financial history, two things can happen. Firstly, it is either that I cannot contribute as much as I would if I were taxed based on my own income. It could possibly be that I am richer than my family. Therefore, if I were taxed based on my annual earning or my real earning, I can actually contribute more to the society, contribute more to the government in the form of taxes. Whereas if I were rich and my taxes is based on my family income, which were lesser than me, therefore I'm not contributing as much as I could. And secondly, if I still do well, if I am still rich but not as rich as my family, because in their case they didn't state clearly on what rich was, on what financially privileged was, because it could be that I am rich but I'm not as well off as my family once were. Therefore, it still creates a condition where I wouldn't be able to pay those taxes. Therefore, the government is actually victimizing me with their policies. And then let's look at the condition where I don't grow up to become successful. I grow up to become poor. So it will create even more burden because right now, just because I am poor, I work as a janitor, low-paying police officer. But my family, I used to come from a very rich family. My family was a business tycoon. So when the government looks at this, they say that, oh, your family is rich. It doesn't matter how much you earn now, just because your family is rich. Now you need to be taxed higher. So that is what the government is doing. So if I were a poor person, this would be a clear violation of my rights because I am not taxed on how much I earn, rather on how privileged my family was. And I don't believe that if I was taxed on how much my family was privileged, it doesn't mean my family is being irresponsible because they were still being taxed on their own wealth. My parents were still being taxed on their own assets and accrual of wealth and so on and so forth. Before we move on, yes.
If I was born in a rich family and I had the best opportunity, the best platform to own a job, a high-paying job, whose fault is it for me to be a low-paying officer or janitor?
It's not a question of whose fault is it for me to be a low-paying janitor. They are clearly assuming that all offspring of rich people will grow up to be successful. Whereas we in the opposition are being realistic. We are catering to the needs of the majority, to the need of the people. We believe that you need to be taxed on how well you do. We are not blaming anyone if you are the people, the children of a rich family and suddenly you become poor. We are not debating on that. We are saying that those things can happen and we as the government need to do our best to accommodate those kinds of conditions with our own policies. And then moving on to the second speaker, they say that equality is not justice. I believe their point does not stand because he claimed that people income tax are the same. As I stated earlier, even their Prime Minister states that income tax are not a fixed level tax, meaning that income tax is determined on how much you earn and you calculate it from there. When my team, POI, the Prime Minister clearly states that's what the tax, the brand of tax they are fighting for. And moving on to my arguments, I would like to expand the debate on from the perspective of societal backlash. We believe under their model, if we go through with the motion, it will create more integralization and unequal distribution of wealth. Why would we create a more integralization in the country or in society? Because it will create a perverse environment in the country. Why do we believe that it is a perverse environment? Because as I stated earlier, it doesn't really matter whether you are rich or if you are poor. It really matters on the history of your family, whether you were raised in a privileged family or you were not raised in a privileged family. So if you are poor right now, but your family was rich, then you have to pay more. If you are rich right now, but you are poor back then, so you have to pay less taxes. So you create a very perverse environment because right now, the things are being shifted around. You are not, the system, as I stated earlier, the system is inefficient. Therefore, you create more integralization because right now the poor will actually have to transfer their wealth to the rich, and the rich can get away by not paying the same amount of taxes. And then, how do we say that we create an equal distribution of wealth? We say that it will create an equal distribution of wealth, looking at the conditions that my leader of opposition has stated earlier. Those who were born rich and become poor, those who are rich and become rich, and those who are poor but are not rich, and those who are poor and are still poor. So we believe that it would be inefficient because the policy is not inclusive. You are not. If I were rich now, but I was poor back then, that means I would be taxed less. Therefore, the government is not actually responsibly taxing me on how much I could have been taxed. So we believe that under their model, there will be an unequal distribution of wealth. Therefore, with that, I believe that the motion should be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, the Minister of Opposition. Case of government and how government will here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have argued to you under several bases. We believe that under our side, we have argued to you that when we read the motion, being born privileged, it means that you have a lot of privileges. We mean to say that if you go to school, you have the chances to go to tuition. If you and all those revenues. We mean to say that even if you flunk school, you still have the money to go to better universities. And that those sort of things are platforms for these individuals who are born privileged to become successful in that sense. And we say that that's very problematic because under our side, we have already argued to you that because we believe that every individual, when the instance they get out of the instance that they get out of the womb of the mother, we see to it that every human should be equal under that sense, that no one should have more privilege than the other. And we see to it that that's not status quo. We see to it that in status quo right now, people who were born with a poor background do not have enough privilege, do not have enough platform to become successful in the future. And whereas the people who were born privileged already have enough privilege to become successful in the future, but suddenly become poor, we see to it that that is their fault, and we see to it that that should not happen, and we see to it that every individual should become as optimum as they can, and we under our side, like we have argued, that now we deter people from rich to become poor, and we also encourage people from the poor to become rich because we create more revenue for these individuals to improve. So, and then so with that being said, no, sit down. We're going. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to debate a few things coming from side opposition. First of all, deputy leader of opposition. Deputy leader of opposition say that they are arguing on the idea that they should follow status quo. Now, under our side, we say that that's not. We say that that's is very problematic. Why? Because we see to it that status quo is not enough. Why? Because we believe that they did how much. Because we see to it that it seems unjustified for a person that is now working as a sanitary officer, but was born in a very rich background. We see to it that is very unfair. But even if that, we see to it that is very unfair. Like for one, yes.
So firstly, income tax under the status quo is proportionate to how you earn. And secondly, if you are born poor and now you're rich, this allow a leeway for them to escape paying higher income tax under your model.
Well, yeah. What we're doing is, what we're doing, also to paint a better picture, what we're doing is it's like we're pretty much what the government is doing is that pretty much we're compensating these individuals for what they because of the hardship that they were born into. You see to it that it is already unfair that these individuals were born into a bad background, but when suddenly after every hardship that they went through, suddenly they become rich and they still have to pay a higher tax. They still have to pay the fixed income tax, and we see to it that is very unfair. We see to it that these individuals has the right to have a lower income tax, seeing that they fought their way to become successful in that sense. And we believe that the least that the government can do would be to lessen the income tax of these individuals that did come from poor backgrounds. Now, second of all, what did side opposition also argue? The side opposition claims to say that now in status quo, they say that in status quo right now, because you have a higher income, because you have a higher income, then you should have the fixed tax in status quo right now should cater to that problem. We see to it that is not true, because we believe that because like I have said before, under our side we have already argued to you that the deterrence that we are imposing right now is a very good deterrence. It means to say that if these rich people, if they were being born rich, they would never slack off of their education or becoming successful in that sense. We see to it that deterrence is the fear of getting a higher tax, even if they become poor in the future, is a very great fear that will deter these individuals from not being successful in the future. But second of all, deputy leader of opposition. He also argued to you that being born rich does not mean that they will become successful in the future. Yes, we totally agree to it. Due to that fact, we see to it that it is unfair that being privileged in that sense, not having a determined future is very problematic, and we see to it that is very unfair. So under our side, we have already argued to you that this acts as a deterrence factor, and this also acts as an incentive for these individuals, for these poor people to become successful in the future. But thirdly, we also have argued to you that this is an act as a compensation for the government towards these individuals. And with all those side government is proud to propose.
Thank you, government. We conclude the constructive debate by popular.
how the debate evolves from equality to blaming rich people becoming poor, and to make poor people saying poor, or to actually take this as a deterrent for the rich people to not be rich anymore. How the debate evolves around equality to the whole concept of compensation of hardships. This is a very, very unique debate, Mr. Speaker. But before that, a few clarifications, right? Number one, income tax is not equal as normal taxes, right? Let's be clear on this. It means normal taxes are like GST, or the one you are imposes when you buy Pizza Hut or whatnot. Income taxes are according to, if I am Jennifer, I earn 1,000 a month, therefore I get 10%. If I earn like Dato Vida, therefore I'm being taxed probably like 25%, something double more than that. So that's how income tax works. To begin with, a few clarifications on that, right? But secondly, right, then we so dismissive of our flexible future tendency. Their only response is about deterrence, and I would get that to my later on my rebuttals, right? When they were dismissive of so many points by our side, and they don't even respond towards how the tendency would be catered on their side, and how would equal and maximization of benefits to a society will be maximized only by their side, and that's not mutually exclusive on our side to begin with. But thirdly, third clarification is that, right? We understand that those taxes will be for good sake. The entire text is going to be that these taxes will provide good things, provide breads towards those people who are in poverty. These taxes will be providing money towards those adoptions, those lower income children. So this will be had for the good sake of society for crying out loud, right? Let's talk about that. But mainly, right, we're going to tell you that we are going to agree with the status quo. My LO have told you repeatedly that we are going for status quo, meaning here we are okay with the income tax policy now, but we are not agreeing with their side of individuals upbringing to begin with, based on the few reasons that we have established earlier. We think that why is this so, right? We think that we are also using these taxes for good sake. Meaning here we are trying to propagate distribution of wealth to all parts of the society. How would their side be mutually exclusive would be in fact maximizing these exercises of rights and these exercises of distribution to begin with? There's never a clear stance on that, but I will get that very bit later, right? But the last clarification, right? They are assuming that we implemented flat rate tax for all of these people whoever they are. Even if I'm selling curry puffs or even if Dato Vida, everyone have the same income tax. That's not how opposition goes into this debate. We think that we have clarified that through the previous speakers, but that's the clarification. Moving on to the first issue. What is the proper way of taxation, right? We've already established to you what taxation means to begin with, but secondly, right, what they talk about on their side, they talk about discrimination. They also talk about how taxation on our side would bring discrimination towards those people, because on our side they assume that we are the rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer. But what's our response, right? Status quo is fine, number one. And our principle is just same as status quo, but again, right, they never even state what is the relevance of taxing them by individuals' upbringing itself. When we ask them, and repeatedly ask them, what if they become poor, whatever, whatnot, means it changes the condition of the party itself. What would happen towards that, and how would government cater to that problem? They never answer that. And what they could answer is that there is a form of deterrence to begin with. But then again, the question comes, how reliable is the type of deterrence that they are going to impose in the society? And how would a society respond to that kind of deterrence to begin with? How would society be like, okay, I am rich, therefore I couldn't go poor? In the end of the debate, right, you always have the rich. The rich people would never want to become poor. Do I want myself to be in a state of bankruptcy? No, we don't want that. I, as a rich people, I always want to maintain my state, my economic stability. But those bankruptcy, those conditions was inevitable to begin with. To this part of society, to those kind of situation, how do government cater to that problem? No, they were not stating any solutions to that. But it was really one on our side, which means here we are being neutral and we're being regulating those taxation in a proper way to begin with. Why? Because we are going neutral, meaning whatever state of condition it is, even if one day I become a janitor and the next day I want to sell curry puffs, meaning here my social income will lesser, therefore my social income on that month will be lesser. Therefore you can regulate that way even so. Meaning here our implementation was more relevant to past debate. So moving on, right? Okay, so moving on, right? One second issue, right? Let's talk about deterrence. This is a very, very unique idea. How they thought that, yes, by implementing this model, it would deter everyone from being poor. It would deter every society, every part of society to being poor, because of tax. is being increased if you are rich, or the tax are being low if you are poor. But how liable is the judicial system is, number one. But secondly, if the rich was afraid of getting poor or bankrupt, and this is called some kind of incentivization, I can also claim that therefore it is also some sort of incentivization for the poor people. Meaning here, I am poor, I wanted to tax less in the future, therefore I remain poor in the end of the debate. It also can occur some incentivization on that cost to begin with. But also, right, if I was poor, therefore such as, okay, like give an example, like Dato' Vida or Nelson Mandela, who comes from a very poor family, with a very poor background. Therefore, in this sort of sense, right, this will also meaning here they have shifted their condition to begin with. Therefore, when the shift have happened, why do the shift of burden doesn't happen with the same proportionate way when the condition has shifted to begin with? Meaning here, when they have shifted the condition from a poor person to a higher level of person, why would their taxation would not be the same as this, would not be proportionate as the shift itself? But more than that, right? What is the tangible benefits? This contribution will be on our side. This tangible benefits will be, this contribution will be maximized at the highest level, because the model itself doesn't impose those who have shifted the condition itself on because of their individuals upbringing itself, not by the current status quo, right? But on the last issue, right, about compensation of hardships, we think this is very, very interesting, because when we talk about having enough privilege, how do we assume that those rich people always have enough privilege? All those rich people always have intelligent kids who can promote their products in the future. That's not necessarily true, because the ultimate tendency, if they don't succeed, government say that they want to blame those people who are not being able to have clever children who can forgo their fortune to begin with. They blame those people who cannot forgo, and they think that is their fault. But lastly, right, about composition of hardships. Firstly, you came up late, Mr. Speaker. But secondly, you are contradicting with your own stance of equality to begin with. It means here, you are trying to compensate hardships, therefore you are okay with lessening up the taxation or whatnot. With a fair government, with a fair policy, go with our position.
By structure, by power plant.
Ladies and gentlemen, side opposition have won the debate today basically on 3 issues. Firstly, our model is the most efficient and fair form of taxation. And secondly, we solve the problem of wealth inequality. And thirdly, we are the ones with the more benevolent impact on society. Firstly, on the issue of most efficient form of taxation, why do I say that the government model is very detrimental, is very harmful, and is very unbeneficial to society? Firstly, their model is uninclusive, is very unfair. Why do I say it unfair? As we have repeatedly stated earlier, their model does not account for the flexibility of the future of a human. Even if I was born in a very rich family, that does not mean I will grow up to be rich. Even if I was born into a poor family, that does not mean I will grow up to be poor. And what does this create in the country? It will create a situation where the net effect of the revenue that the country will get is a lot more lower. Why? They will create an opportunity for a leeway for people who are rich to pay lesser taxes, and in some conditions, those who are poor will pay a higher amount of tax. So we believe this is very inefficient for the government to do, because at the end of the day, what the government wants to do is to maximize revenue in a way that is humane, in a way that is compassionate. And they are not being humane, neither or they are being any more smarter in increasing revenue. Because at the end of the day, the revenue inside government is much, much lower. So that is why we believe under our model it is the most efficient form of taxation. And then let's move on to the idea of solving the problem of wealth inequality. They stated that what is happening under the status quo is not enough. How we impose tax on the populace is not good, whereby they're saying that wealth inequality is there. So the way that they want to solve wealth inequality is actually to create more wealth inequality. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? Because we have repeatedly stated that you would create a condition whereby rich people can pay less taxes and the poor can pay more taxes. Even though it is not in every case that this is true, you will still create a majority of cases where this will happen. So we believe under their model, it will create a lot more wealth inequality, whereas under our model, your tax is determined on how much you earn annually, how much you earn monthly. Therefore, it will solve the problem of wealth inequality, because you contribute to the government proportionate to what you earn. Therefore, the government is not burdening you while you can carry out responsibility. And then thirdly, they stated that on the issue of impact of society, they stated that the idea of deterrence itself, because my third speaker have repeatedly told you on how the idea of deterrence is not feasible, because how reliable is the idea of deterrence itself, and even if it is reliable, it is unfair for the government to put the burden on rich people to not become poor. The government is basically stating that by enacting this policy, you have a very shitty policy, so it's up to you to make sure that you are not oppressed by the system. So what we, the opposition, are fighting for is that we are trying to accommodate the different outcomes of the lives of people. Therefore, we are be the more benevolent and more fair government with a better policy than the government we have here today. So let's look at the idea of compensation of hardship. As my third speaker has stated earlier, they are trying to say that they are fighting wealth inequality, but at the end of the day, they are saying that it is okay for you to be treated inequally to the rest of the population. They say that if you are poor in the past, but now you are rich, it is okay for you to pay less taxes. That is what they are agreeing for, because at the end of the day, it shows that they still agree with wealth inequality. So what have I told you today? What have side opposition told you today? We told you that the form of tax that we are trying to fight for is the most fair form of taxation, the most efficient, and the one that can maximize the revenue of the country, therefore putting the country in a better economic shape, as well as making sure that everyone's condition, everyone's future, the flexible future everybody is catered to, and as well as we don't think that the people should be burdened by the wealth inequality that is already happening, and we show that under our model, the problem of wealth inequality is better catered to, and even if it is not catered to, it's still better than what is government is proposing, because it will exacerbate the problem. And secondly, we have the most bad impact on society, because we are actually taking care of all the people in the city, whereas the government is being selective, is being unequal, and being illogical. With that, I believe the government have won. The opposition have won. Thank you.
Thank you. On the slide, this opportunity, and I invite Dr. Saidi here.
As you can see, opposition themselves have conceded that we have won. So this means that I'm very happy to you that we believe that the system and the status quo that exists right now is actually the worst thing that can happen right now. Because we believe that on our side, we at least bring the change to wealth distribution. We at least cater to both sides of the parties, who are the poor and also the rich people. We believe that our side is the most logical and the most reasonable side to support, because firstly, the situation that the situation created right now is that it oppresses people, especially these poor people. It victimizes these poor people, because you have to understand that when you only have a tax based on your income, this creates a situation where the rich stay rich and poor can never be rich. Because we believe that the opportunities and the privileges that these poor people can never be fulfilled and can never be achieved. Because when these poor people try to escape the poverty line, you have to remember that if every cent that they gain is very meaningful to them. It's precious, even if it's 1 cent. We believe that this thing is very important. Because if on our side, where the government taxes less on poor people, these poor people can at least save more money and get more income in order to escape the poverty line. Whereas the status quo, where the opposition side tries to follow the status quo, where they are going to constantly tax these poor people and will constantly oppress these poor people from escaping the poverty line. So I believe that this type of system is cruel towards the poor people, because you are trying to deny the ability for them to have a better future. You are denying them to live a happy life, to have a comfortable bed and a rooftop above them. So I believe that this is why we say that the opposition side is the most oppressive and the most dangerous one in this debate. Even if that we change a little bit in status quo, at least we are better than opposition side. We are the side that caters to the poor people who need the help right now. We are the ones who save these people from living in a life for generations living in a life in the slums, and also cater to the rich people where we don't oppress or we don't, and we allow them to continue their normal lives. So we believe that on our side, we take this debate clearly.
Here,
Thanks for the debate. Invited me to this project as I'm the announcer.
Good luck next round. Okay, good luck next round.
Wait, this is the next round. Kalau mati kan? Kita kasih 4.
After this, but just see here so that we can